live? We're live. Why? Good morning.
Live
Hello.
with a cup of tea.
Live with tea. Wow, goodness, we've just swapped the chat over and realised how many people are already here. Thank you for coming. It's really nice to have everybody here this morning. Bidoo-bidoo. Right, we are on the 8th. This is our 8th edition. How are we holding up?
The primer going well.
We're
No
going
problem
well.
at all.
Hope you're all going well too. All right, so today we are going to be looking at what the Zetas have told us about Apports, difference between Apports and Asports. Have you heard of an Asport before?
Yeah, but also about spirit realm, spirits, ghosts,
Materialization.
contact.
And we're also going to be talking about our own experiences of those things, from being the medium ourselves to what we've witnessed with other mediums that we've seen. And so we hope it'll be interesting. As always, if you have a question, just maybe type question in capital letters if the chat box is looking busy. Just helps us to recognize if you're asking a question rather than, just chatting amongst yourselves, which you are more than welcome to do. And if you have a question about stuff we're not talking about, but it, kind of on topic, not like what you need for your shopping at the weekend, then just ask. It doesn't matter. We can come back to it if it's, completely out there, or we can integrate it if it works. So it's all good. Check. Anybody think I'd had too much coffee this morning?
Yeah.
After last week, I do need more coffee, that's for sure. Okay, so why don't we frame our conversation? So we're talking about what the Zetas have told us happens through mediums, materialization.
Oh, look, that conversation's just too big. You can't frame it that way. So you're going to have to speak about the individual components in regards to apportation, asports, levitation, and every other thing that's related to spirit stuff, and then go, well, this is what the Zetas have said, but then again, this is what spirits have said. So this is going to be a bit of a different stream, because we're going to be utilizing a lot of the different aspects of our contact with spirits and the Zetas.
So should we start with a really basic? What is a medium? Most people here would have have an idea about what a medium is, but do you want to?
Well, I think people, there's a lot of confusion about what a medium is. Some people call psychics mediums. A medium can be psychic, but generally psychics aren't mediums. So it's a bit of a contradiction there. There's all different types of mediums. There's altered state mediums, overshadowed medium, transfiguration mediums, deep trance mediums, physical mediums as well. And there's mediums that also have objective sight and subjective sight as well. So there's a lot of different types of mediums in regards to spirit people. And then, of course, we move over to the extraterrestrial level of contact. And it's a different type of mediumship that's used for real and evidenced ET contact. And that's not called channeling. Channeling is either your subconscious mind coming through and giving information, or it's inspirational information from your guide or your loved ones, or it's inspirational information from yourself.
Higher self.
Higher self. But the thing is obviously the difference between channeling and pure, true mediumship is the level of evidence that comes through. So how did you actually start to develop as a medium?
I won't go on about it too long, because I think we've spoken about it a few times, but I had no belief in the afterlife in any way, shape or form until I hit 17, when I experienced an event, a spirit-based event, in which a spirit materialized, showed themselves to me and calmed a situation that could not be calmed by myself. I knew who the spirit was. And at that point, I was confronted with my entire reality being turned upside down on its head, as it would be. And so I I sought out the only place I could find, a spiritualist church where I was living at the time, and I started developing with them, doing just low-level transfiguration, kind of clairvoyant mediumship as well. They kind of mixed it up a bit. They were a very unusual spiritualist church for the UK. In fact, they welcomed trance mediumship and kind of transfiguration and things like that, whereas in my experience, generally most spiritualist churches don't anymore. They like to keep it to platform clairvoyant work. So I was very lucky, and they were an awesome set of people as well, like really, really lovely people.
What's platform?
Okay, so platform, good point.
Because you're using a lot of terminology that people don't understand.
So platform mediumship is basically, in terms of spiritual mediumship churches, where you will have a clairvoyant medium go up onto the platform, the stage, the rostrum, whatever, the place at the front separate to the congregation or the audience, and they will pass clairvoyant evidence messages, hopefully.
Do they use Ouija boards while they do that?
From loved ones, not using Ouija boards or any electronic devices.
What about table tipping?
No ghost boxes, no EVP machines. Pure classic, wonderful, evidenced, proper clairvoyant mediumship.
Mental mediumship.
Yeah. Which is, in our opinion, the best possible thing you can do. Use yourself as the medium and nothing else. So that's what I meant by platform mediumship.
Okay. And so how did you develop?
Well,
I'm still waiting for that part to
well, I would go along every week. And so that it basically unlocked a door in me, but my door had been firmly closed up until that point. And from that point on, the doors just opened. I don't know how I developed. I think to say that I developed would be incorrect. I'd say the spirits just came on in and got on with it. It's the only way I could describe it. Within a few years, I was naturally doing trance mediumship, and within a closed circle, and I'd have the same group of people come in week out and sit and support me in my development that progressed from trance mediumship.
Why couldn't you sit on a line rather than a circle?
Physical mediumship. You're being really awkward.
No, I'm asking questions as though. So why would a person sit in a circle?
All right. Okay.
Rather than a line.
Okay, we really are going back to basics.
Can mediums sit in a line?
Yes, they can. Sit in a line if you like.
You can sit anywhere that you want to. I'm trying to get rid of all this terminology that's being thrown at you.
Oh my God. So a circle is what mediums describe as a group of people that come together to do whatever it is they're doing. It could be a meditation group or circle. It could be a development circle. Right. It could be an energy work circle.
So it's basically any type of shape. It can be any shape. It doesn't have to be a circle.
Have you gone into Zeta mode or something?
No, I've had too much coffee.
I can tell.
There's some questions here. When am I teaching levitation? I'm not, but I tell you what, we're going to tell you some stories about levitation. That's actually really amazing. Christopher says, do the Zetas know that we wrote the books on them? Well,
they wrote the books.
They wrote the books through me.
Yeah.
And we just transcribed what they said. So that's how it works. So yes, absolutely, they do know that the books have been written because they wrote them.
They provided the information that formed the books. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, and we won't worry about how big the platform was. It really doesn't.
Or whether
matter.
It was a straight line or raised or anything. Yeah. We're not even going to go there.
Someone's going to take a mediumship octagon. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, why not? So if I was to say, how did I develop mediumship? I'd say very carefully, because I was able to always see a lot of spirits around me. And ultimately, when I decided to speak to them, which took a lot of courage because, it's not always what it seems, I realized that they could speak back. And so I worked with between, I think it was 300 to 500 spirits over a couple of years. It was like a train station. It was really busy. And I'd pass messages to people. And I promised that I would never, ever do trance work because I felt that it was too dangerous. But then one day somebody asked me to try and do trance, and it worked straight away. And I thought, okay, well, where's the evidence? So I started looking about what evidence is in regards to mediumship. And then I spent many years developing in regards to being a medium. What I also did, though, was in later years was go and watch other mediums also demonstrate. And when we say demonstrate, we don't mean that they've got a plaque and they're saying down with mediums. What they're doing is they're getting up there and they're showing people their abilities, whether it's transfiguration or the ability to float things around the room using ectoplasm or apportation or apports. We'll be getting into all of those things soon. And John, you've got a question, so just type it in. You don't have to say you've got a big question. You just type it in, and we'll see it, and we'll answer that question. So basically, what's the difference between a spirit and a ghost?
Okay, so we this is our opinion. This is formed on our combined silly amounts of decades of working with spirits. But for us, the word spirit refers to a person who is no longer with us in physical life. They've moved over to spirit realm, and they are coming back to us in whatever way they can manage it. They are the essence of what humans are without the body.
So basically it's you when you drop dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go. Simple answer. You see, spirit people.
So what's a ghost?
A ghost is, let's say that you live in a house for years and you cook every day. And then, of course, all that imagery of you doing that moves into the astral, and then you pass over and then you go up back to spirit realm. So you go home, and then somebody moves into your home and they're a bit sensitive, or they're able to see into the astral, and suddenly they start seeing you walking around the kitchen, cooking and washing dishes and all the rest of it. So it's just an energetic replay of what has taken place.
Yeah, and you'll often hear about that. You know, most haunted houses and haunted places, it's just you've got an energetic replay going on, like a record just playing over and over, and it'll be very repetitive motions. Like I know Hampton Court, for instance, famous place in the UK. Apparently, if you go to a certain spot at a certain time of the day, you will see something, you know, traverse the corridors. Well, probably likely representing exactly what that person used to do every day.
Well, the Crown and Anchor has the same process take place in the UK. If you want to type in lower case so that your sentences come through as well, and remember not to copy and paste. So we've talked about spirits and ghosts. What's spirit realm?
Oh, we've talked about spirit realm.
What if someone's never seen one of the videos before?
If you haven't heard us talk about spirit realm, we'll just summarize it, because we've done like whole videos about it. But basically, it's a created space, which sounds a bit peculiar, but it's the way it is. Fifth dimensional space where our spirits reside once they've left our physical bodies. Why are you laughing at me again? It's putting me off.
Just all these different concepts.
Yeah, there's a lot of concepts. Spirit realm can be anything that the person needs it to be. It's a very organic environment, to use Paul's words, very fluid, not literally, but if they wanted it to be, it could be. But
so spirit, Trish says, is spirit realm not in the astral? No, not at all.
No,
astral realm is an energetic fabric that is around the living, around the three-dimensional space. The room that you're in also has a mirror image of the physical room. That's called the astral. Spirit realm is like a radio that has a different frequency, a different way of entering into that frequency and dimension. And so spirit realm is absolutely not the astral. But remember that a lot of people, when they see spirits, or what they believe are spirits, are seeing the imagery in the astral and not the spirit person who's actually cognizant, conscious, and is living a full life in the spirit realm as well.
So you're saying there that ghosts, the energetic replays embedded into the astral fabric. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying sort of something like that. I'm saying that often people will see a ghost if an energetic event triggers the imagery to come forward from the astral, but a developing medium may start seeing spirit-looking people coming forward thinking that they're from spirit realm, but all they are is imagery from within the astral.
Yep. I mean, and that's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, I find it quite simple, but it's only because we've been doing this for a long time. I think this is where the confusion lays, that a lot of people go, oh, quick, I'll grab my EVP device and start talking to the spirit person, and they end up with a whole lot of mumbo jumbo.
Here's a question for you. Why do we not recommend EVP devices?
I don't recommend any type of electronic device, because you'll be dealing with earthbound spirits and astral imagery and servitors and things that relate to very low energy. They also then attach themselves to the device, and quite often people will find, or it's been reported that people have said that they start getting these entities verbally abusing them on the devices. So it doesn't take much research to find that a lot of this stuff goes sideways quite quickly when people don't use their own natural intuitive abilities as well.
Yeah, this is the thing about these devices. They lack the intuitive abilities that a human does. So, you know, if you closed your eyes and spoke to a person, you could probably get a sense of their personality and their intention towards you by the tone of their voice and how they're coming across and how they're presenting themselves, right? But it's the same as one of these boxes. If you use a box, you've got no way to
manage what's going on.
Yeah, no way to sense what's going on. And it's our sense. We rely on our senses more than we realize, I think, even with our eyes open.
All right, so I think we've explained that enough. Let's get into the meat of the matter.
Okay, so
let's talk about the good stuff. Floating tables, floating people, ectoplasm.
Let's bring it back to the primer for a minute, though. What do the Zetas say about how apports are created? So first of all, what is an apport?
An apport is something materializes around you, and it could be like an item or something that a loved one used to own. The Zetas talk about that in very technical terms, and which I won't be discussing here because, of course, you can read it in the primer. But, of course, also apports can be original items as well. So in the past, spirit people would apport flowers and roses into a seance room. They would also apport birds as well.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I haven't seen a bird, but I have seen an apport form. Is now a good time? Or do you want to answer those questions first?
Well, there's John's question. Can a living creature, such as a frog, for example, be apported or teleported? So basically, if we talk about, it's called asportation. And asportation is where an item is taken from one place to the other. Now, we're not talking about your socks that disappear, okay? But we're talking about, or your car keys either. We're talking about the fact that, I'll give you an example. I had something in this house, and I was away about 50 kilometers away, and I saw a flash of light, and I looked down, and there was that item next to me. Now, there was no way that it could have been there. I then picked it up and put it away where I was, and then there was a flash of light again, and the same item was back where it was before. When I got back here, I looked, and it was gone, but it was, of course, with me in my pocket. It was asported from one place to the other. Spirit people can do that, whereas apportation means that a spirit person can create using what's called the etheric body, or the etheric body of an item, such as a little statue or a crystal or a flower. And the Zetas have said that what happens is they take the copy of the etheric body, and then using the medium's minerals from their body and some ectoplasm, we'll discuss ectoplasm after, and using what's called fine matter, they then rebuild the item back to its original shape and form, and that is called an apport.
Yeah. Now I'm lucky. I have experienced the creation of an apport seriously up close and personal. on one occasion, and on another occasion I've actually had an apport through my own mediumship. But the apport that I witnessed being formed was through a medium called Bill Meadows, who's now retired from demonstrating, which is a shame for the world, to be honest, because I don't think there is anyone else like what he can do with spirit people left on the planet at this point, and if they are, they're in hiding.
Right.
Thank you. And so with him, we were sat, and I'm just going to say this because it's important kind of to acknowledge the credibility of these mediums. Okay, so
yeah, absolutely.
Physical mediumship is riddled with controversy, and we're not blind to that. We're well aware. There's been many cases in recent years of fraudulent activity. Now, Bill Meadows is a man. He's in his 80s now. When I saw him demonstrate, he was in his 70s. He's very tall, very willowy. And in this particular seance room, because I saw him sit many times, it was a tiny, like miniature seance room, sitting room. There was no circle. We were in lines. Okay?
There you go. You see, that's why I said that.
There was no more than 10 or 12 people in the room, and we were sat opposite each other again in a small rectangular room, and there was no more than 50 centimeters between our knees, sat, upright as you could be in the plastic chairs. It was tiny, and the cabinet, the place where he sat, was at the far end. The cabinet was an enclosed space where don't even start, where the spirits...
I'm thinking about a glass cabinet. Maybe put a glass in,
They build the ectoplasm in the dark. Now, Bill generally sat in a low red light. And so when the spirits were creating with ectoplasm, which is the medium's life force.
Made from the pancreas.
And can be really stinky as well. They would pop him in the box. So he sits in the box. He's all strapped in, cable tied, massive Velcro straps, everything. This guy's not going anywhere. No. And even if he could, at over 6 foot tall, with less than 50 centimeters between me and the person,
in the dark,
the light was on, the low red light was on. You would have seen him, but it's just physically impossible.
So basically, just to put a stop there. When physical mediums sit, they may either sit in full darkness, so you can't see what's going on, unless the spirit people, and we'll talk about this after, use a plate, a special plate where it's phosphorus and they glow, or they create these, or they use a red light.
Yeah. So with Bill, he had the low red light on. So what happened was, they placed a plaque, piece of card, and they illuminated it with some self-luminous paint, and they shone the torch on it around the back so it didn't interfere with the cabinet. Put it on the floor in front of my feet. Okay, so my feet are on the floor. It's like literally that far from my feet. This plaque raised up by itself,
floated, levitated
in front of my face. It's just here, and it's about that big. And over, I think it was about 15 minutes. It took a long time. This plaque just hovered there. There was nothing underneath it. No, it was, just there. And it was clear. Then what happened, it was like somebody had drawn a black line on it. And that black line slowly got fatter and fatter. And then you could see, because it's like this far from my face, that black line had become 3D, and it was now like a 3D black line. It got bigger and bigger and bigger till it got to about, I don't know, just shy of an inch long. And it changed texture. It became a golden color, and it created a form. And it got to that size. It was a solid gold colored metal. It was heavy, and then poof, the whole lot fell to the floor right in front of me. I mean, there was no fraudulent activity there. It was impossible.
There's a question there. So we're just going to segue back to the question, and then come back and ask me about Tom. All right. So just remember to put a placeholder there. Someone says, Serene says, if there's an extraterrestrial in your house, can you describe in detail how it feels? For us, we can. How the energy feels in relation to humans, because their energy is more powerful. And do we feel it as fear or dread? Well, straight up, spirit people's energy can be just as strong as extraterrestrial energy.
Yeah.
There's no problem there. And this is where we need to understand that if a spirit person is developing a medium, and the medium has the ability to produce or become a deep trance medium, the energy around them can be so strong. As I'll give you an example. I think it was Leslie Flint, when he was about to develop, the spirit people showed him a demonstration of his own abilities. I think they either lifted a table or a piano onto one leg, right? So the power and the energy in the house would have been absolutely phenomenal at that point in time. Now, often with extraterrestrial contact, people are asleep and they wake up and they may have a sense of fear. And the fear is a natural response to the energy of the extraterrestrial beings coming around a person. The person's generally anesthetized at that point in time and put to sleep because of the level of fear that they are experiencing. We both went through that as well. Of course, I went through it many, many years ago, and it doesn't happen anymore. They just turn up, and I just am like, hello. So there's certain protocols that are needed to be put in place for contact, and as long as you observe those protocols, which are based around observation and consciousness and cognizance of contact, what will take place is they won't put you to sleep. That's the best part about it. And if that happens, then of course they will telepathically communicate with you, possibly even take you onto craft. You can walk onto the craft. They'll let you interact with them in many clear ways. I've had contact with extraterrestrials where they've landed in craft and came out and walked around, and they've done it multiple times.
With
multiple people there as well. And all they did was put the people that were there into a minor anesthetized state so that they had no fear. And they were able to walk up and actually put their hands on my shoulders. Now, I wasn't in any way concerned or worried, but the energy, yes, was quite strong. But it's up to a person to develop that level of communication with beings. And the same thing goes for spirits as well. Spirit people have very, very strong energy. And you'd be surprised how strong the energy spirit peoples can be. So for me, when the Zetas are here, the energy is very strong. We have a scale that we use from 0 to 10. I'd suggest that in most cases, it's about a 10. Under normal circumstances, a person who hasn't been trained would black out because that's the anesthetized state. We also know that craft also anesthetize humans as well and give them a narrative. And so that's my explanation of having contact. Now, Trish says, what about some mediums these days in white light? Well, that's true. You can have mediums that sit in full daylight or white light. I've had many things happen in daylight, things such as parts of ectoplasm being seen. We also had in red light, red light, independent direct voice, and that's where the spirits are using the medium's ectoplasm, create a voice box in the room, and the voice box is unseen by the human eye. The spirit people then impress their voice into the ectoplasm and can speak into the room. And it's a very interesting process because remember, spirits don't breathe, but humans do breathe, and you need to breathe to be able to speak because it is the air around you that's coming out of you that's vibrating your vocal cords as well. So there's a lot to independent direct voice. Getting back now to the placeholder, talking about mediums. I went and saw a medium, and we love to go and watch mediums demonstrate from all over the world. And I was sitting right up the front. I would have been no more than a half a meter from the cabinet, which is the structure that the medium's in with the black curtain. And my chair collapsed, and that's fine. I believe that the spirit people collapsed the chair. Because they wanted me to see something that nobody else was about to see. So I basically just laid on the floor, just like this on the floor, laying on the floor, right in front of the cabinet. I saw a red glow come in from under the curtain inside the cabinet. I saw the chair that must have weighed at least 30 kilos levitate off the floor. The medium was completely strapped in because I strapped him in to the chair prior to closing the curtains. The curtains opened, the spirit people opened the curtains, and out of the darkness, the medium, still strapped into the chair with the chair about this high off the ground, floated all the way out of the cabinet. And then what they did was they dropped it right beside me. And as it went past me, it grazed the side of me and hit the ground. Now, if it had have dropped onto me, it would have broken my ribs, I guess, because, of course, the medium is in the chair. But spirit people are definitely able to levitate mediums as well. Of course, they can do matter through matter, and you've seen that, haven't you?
I have seen it, yeah.
And what is matter through matter?
Well, it's just when they pass physical objects through physical objects. It's quite simple. I've seen female medium strapped into a chair, again, thick Velcro and cable ties. That's the word I'm looking for, cable ties. And they just simply lifted her arms up, and underneath was the Velcro and the cable tie still on the arm of the chair, completely intact. And at the end of the sitting, they put her arm back down, and it was all back on again, all in red light.
So here's something interesting. So if we talk about independent direct voice and some of the mediums that used to do it, such as John Campbell Sloan and Leslie Flint, the interesting thing is that you could say, oh, they were just ventriloquists and that the voice was coming from them. But with John Sloan and Leslie Flint, I believe that at one point there could have been multiple spirit people all speaking at the same time while the medium just sat there. Now, John Sloan would have been unconscious, but Leslie Flint was never unconscious. He didn't want to be placed into an unconscious state, so he could sit there. And if you go to the Leslie Flint Trust, you can sit and listen to the audios of the spirit people speaking for themselves via independent direct voice to the living. Yeah. There's hundreds of hours of audio on there as well, and it's an amazing place to sit and just listen to spirit people talking, giving their opinion about spirit realm, talking about their life when they were living. A very nice place.
Jackie's asking, what was the...
Tom Morris.
Tom Morris, yeah.
A very good medium from France.
Yep.
Yes. So what's another... Tell them about the time with the head.
The head.
The head.
Oh man, really? Okay. Well, hang on. What do the Zetas say about materialization first? Because this goes some way towards that, doesn't it? How do spirits materialize?
Oh, I mean,
just a.
How do spirits materialize?
Come on, just a little brief.
Spirits use various substances to materialize. So they may initially just, through objective mediumship, you'll see a spirit person, but for them to appear in a seance condition where they're walking around the room, and then they may be standing there and then just dissolve into the ground as they do, and also just a head sitting on the floor talking, they'd be using ectoplasm to do that.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned earlier ectoplasm. Who hasn't heard of ectoplasm, Ghostbusters and stuff, but it's actually real. That stuff is actually real. It's the life force of every single walking, breathing, living, talking person on this planet. Now, physical mediums just seem to happen to have more of it, and that is used by the spirit people to generate the phenomena that we see in physical sittings. Now, I'll go back to Bill Meadows and this head and the floating black again. Now, we were sat in a circle in this particular sitting. There's about 20 people in a horseshoe shape, and he was at one end and I was actually more or less directly opposite the cabinet. And the plaque came up, and I was expecting to see an Apport form because that's what I'd seen before, but not on this occasion. On this occasion, as the plaque came round, I realized that there was a illuminated from underneath, because of the light from the plaque, a ball shape, and it looked holographic. It was translucent, but you could clearly see a ball-shaped something or other over the top of the plaque. Now, as the plaque came round to the people were talking to the ball, And everyone was on this side of the room was very confused because we couldn't quite see, because the light was quite low. We couldn't quite see what was going on. And as the plaque came round to the front, we realized there was a head, a fully formed head, like a vaguely semi-translucent, fully materialized head with hair and eyebrows and eyelashes, wrinkles, textured skin. And the head was saying hello to everybody and introducing himself as he went to every single person. And when he got to me and introduced himself, all I could do was go, yes, it's nice to meet you too, and try and keep my head intact at what I was seeing as it just moved on to the next person. There was no holographic projectors in the room. There was no, it was just nothing. Like,
I think this is the benefit of sitting in the past.
Yeah,
the technologies didn't exist.
Yeah,
to provide some sort of holographic imagery.
Not that sophisticated. That was talking.
Yeah,
and as I said, this plaque's just floating around. You can see there's no strings. There's nothing that's bright enough to see that. So,
have you ever seen ectoplasm come out of a medium?
Yes.
I have as well.
Yeah, I have.
Copious amounts of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I've also seen sparks flying out of a medium as well, and that was very interesting. So
yeah, I know from can be very stinky, and then sometimes it's very sweet.
Yes.
People have described the cords that are very physical.
But ectoplasm generally it's a bit musky.
It can be. Mine smells of mouldy old mushrooms.
Mouldy mushrooms.
Which is fine.
Interesting, isn't it? What a wonderful level of description. Yes.
Yeah, so it's just the way it is.
Yeah, okay. So that's just the way it is. But the thing is that ectoplasm can be black or white. It can be any color in particular. There's no color aside. There's no specific type of smell. There's no whatever. But when you see it coming out, it can be undulating and rolling like steam and rolling out. And it can form hands and heads and
can do all stuff.
Spirit people can impress. It's like a sheet hanging off a clothesline. If you walk up and push your hand on it, and then look around the side, you see the vague outline of your hand on the sheet as well.
We have a photo of you, don't we, with a voice box on your shoulder. And you can see in the photo there's all these tubes and cords, and they're all sat in a conglomerate on your shoulder. And there's a question.
There's a few questions, and I see John's comment, and absolutely, it's not that bad, John. But science is making stuff up at this point.
I'm not.
Have either of you had the experience of the ETs passing your body through a wall or a closed door? Yes, I have actually. Many, many years ago. It depends on what the dematerialized state is. That's the real issue. So obviously you're moving from this three-dimensional space into a space-time compression internal model inside a craft. And so you've got to be dematerialized to go through matter. So just as we were talking about before with spirit people, basically going through their ties, that the extraterrestrials would also place someone through physical boundaries into craft. The way they go on a craft is a completely different method as well. But yeah, there's definitely a dematerialization involved in that.
I don't ever recall how. I recall them being with me in the room, and then I'm aware of being on craft, or I remember being on craft, depending whether I'm remembering it after the event or I'm conscious during the event. But I've so far never remembered actually transferring onto craft, if that makes sense.
Jackie says, what or who are the shadow people in the dark room during a seance? Well, it depends who you're sitting with. So you could be sitting with a person that's not fully developed, and you'll be seeing astral entities as imagery coming into the seance room and moving through, depending on the level of energetic fabric that's being displayed. Other times, it could be spirit people that are in a dematerialized state but are showing themselves as a basically just a shadow through the room as well. Also, when people astral travel, the astraling means that they may be seen by people that are not asleep, that are awake, as a black shadow that goes around a wall or something like that as well. So,
and if you're sitting with you, it could be the Zetas walking through the room.
Yeah,
it just really depends.
It could be the Zetas, or it could be them starting to materialize.
Yeah, and they've done that a good few times.
Okay, right. So that was that. Now, what else are we up to? I've seen another medium who was levitated at least 4 meters while tied into a chair, and the spirit people took his cardigan off, put it back on, and did the buttons up and the cable ties, put them back. When the person was unconscious when it happened.
Yeah, I've seen the same.
Yeah,
I've seen people's clothes been just suddenly turned around, and you've not even been aware of them turning around. Very, very.
Someone says, "Can you list some smells if ET are present in the room?" You know, interestingly, we have to ask ourselves, what ET, which race?
Yeah.
Because depending on what race is in the room, there may be no smells, some smells, sweet smells, foul smells, right? And so we need to understand that specific races come with different smells. Now, of course, if we talk about other entities coming into the room as well, they'll also prevent possibly with an odor. And so you cannot identify a race by smell. That is probably one of the worst ways to do it, because if a being came into the room, such as a spirit, and projected a smell into the room, because they can roses or honey or whatever smell they want to, a person may make the big mistake of believing that they were dealing with an extraterrestrial, and it could be an earthbound spirit.
Yeah. And, you know, just because something smells bad doesn't mean that there's a bad entity in the room. And just because something smells amazing doesn't mean there's a good entity in the room either. So,
Sarah, I've not seen a big fat question. I think people need to type in lowercase. That may help, I think. And if your question hasn't been answered, then I just saw you say okay. So we've worked out that uppercase doesn't work for some people. So if you just put the word question at the front, that way we can see that it's a question. Would you like to explain what precipitation mediumship is?
Yeah, well, the word precipitation in mediumship generally refers to when pictures or images or paintings are created during the sitting or a designated time afterwards. So I sat for this a few times myself, and so we started off with slates, so very old school, 2 slates on top of each other. They were embedded into a wooden frame, and the wooden frame was locked so it couldn't be opened. But what we did is we put a diagonal line from one corner to the other as a control line of chalk that was photographed and documented before we put them together. Now, that's because in order to create an image on any material, the spirit people need materials to do that with. So just in the same way as they populate or the ET populate consciousness with fine matter, spirit people need to use something to create imagery. So there's many cases of spirits reporting to use tiny bits of fabric from curtains and dye from this and colors from that and the luminosity from the strips on the trumpets to create imagery. Well, the plan was that the spirit people in this case would use the chalk that was already on the board to then form an additional image, just in the same way as they did with your drawing that you have in the front room. I was about to
say. So I had a sheet of paper laying on a flat surface, and we crushed up some graphite pencil and sprinkled it over the top. And then the thing was, we were going to put our hands over the top of the paper and just stand there and wait for the guides to see if they would draw something on the paper. 5 minutes goes by. I'm looking at the paper. I'm thinking, I can't be bothered with this. It's a waste of time. So I've just picked the paper up and I've gone to screw the paper up and throw it in the bin. And I heard a spirit person that I know say to me, "Oh, you're not going to turn the paper over." Now, remembering there was no graphite on the table at all, I turned the paper over and there was a drawn picture of the spirit person that was talking to me on the paper.
So they'd use the graphite from above to create
above the paper
to, create the
to draw underneath,
which is lovely. Yeah,
I'd forgotten all about that. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. All right, Sarah. Now, your other works describe how intention is used to create reality, and I understand that. Is this process similar to how the Zetas describe the creation from fine to coarse matter? No. Because to use fine to coarse matter means that an etheric body will be used, and then the molecular structure of the environment is then used to embed it into the etheric body. The etheric body then forms into a solid mass. It is a much longer process, whereas the creational perspectives and the creational processes are based around what's called a creational space. And creational space allows things to be created on timelines as well. All right. Okay. What about orbs?
I knew you were going to jump to orbs.
Oh, okay.
We've got a long list.
We've got a long list of things.
Orbs. Who doesn't love orbs? Oh my God, everybody. We love orbs. Most people would have heard us talk about orbs in the context of extraterrestrial technology, but we all know that spirit people do orbs. In fact, that's why the ET use orbs when they do, for encompassing their technology, so it doesn't freak us poor humans out when it comes into the room. They copy the spirit people because they know that humans love orbs. We don't feel threatened by them, generally speaking. We're quite accepting of them, and we associate them with, visiting spirit people. So you've got a lot of video footage of orbs in your sittings, and one of them in particular relates to a regular spirit person that we like to have around, and he is awesome at showing himself in orbs.
So how did we evidence this spirit person? We said, okay, look, what we're going to do is we're going to turn on a camera and we're going to take footage of me sitting in the cabinet. And so we did that, and there was no specks of dust, and nobody was moving around. There was no orbs,
and it wasn't raining.
And then we asked again to do it, so we did it again. And these were two processes we put in place, and I'm sure there's a word for it, but
a control. So you have
these are controls, right?
Yeah.
And then we said, I was sitting in the cabinet, and someone said, "Can that spirit person come through now?" And this minute they said it, an orb appeared, and it came down, stopped, and then it went like this, and it spiraled down. And I thought that was great evidence.
It was awesome.
It was awesome evidence, especially to get it on footage as well.
Yeah, and that particular spirit person always comes to you as an orb first. That's how I see them, and I know when he's about to talk, when we're sitting and the light's right, because I see the little orb come in, and then he'll start talking every time.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Absolutely. We've got a list of questions here, so if you don't have any questions, we've got plenty. All right. What is the main purpose or function of ectoplasm in spiritualism?
Well, traditionally, it was used to create voice boxes and for materialization. That was pretty much why they started using it. But we also know they use it for table tilting as well. Quite often, spirits will form a column of ectoplasm under the table. Now, whether you can see it or not is a different matter.
If you want
use
to
the table with it.
Look up the Gallagher circle, and they have a picture of I think her name's Catherine Gallagher. This is a very old picture, and the coalescence of ectoplasm in the room, and it forms an ectoplasmic pole, and that's all joined to all the medium solar plexus. Now, these ectoplasmic poles are often used to move things. They're placed under a table. I'll give you an example. So I was sitting with a medium, and there was only 4 of us. It was a fairly heavy table. And the spirit people, we had our hands on the table, and we said to the spirit people, do you think you could levitate the table? And I could, because I can see spirits, the 4 of them came over with the ectoplasmic poles, put them under the table, and then lifted the table off the ground. Now, the table went at least initially about 6 inches off the ground. And it was quite a heavy table. And then they tried again and again. And they managed to get it to about this far. Is it about 2 feet? Maybe off a foot and a half off the floor. That was a very, very good demonstration of them. So, of course, me being the skeptical person that I am, when the lights went on, I then tried to lift the table up by myself. If I could, I couldn't do it. I couldn't even move it. It was so heavy, especially sitting, in front of the table and under it. We should always try and be skeptical. I mean, it helps in the end, especially with that sort of things.
There's a question from John.
Is there? Okay, so do different spirits manifest as specific colours or orbs? Yes, they do. The only problem we've got is with assigning colours to orbs, or if somebody might go, oh, there's an Arcturian, just because they see a specific colour, but it may not even be an Arcturian. It could actually just be a spirit person. Yeah. And so the way that I see orbs or colours for orbs is individual to me, and the way that Cyan sees orbs and colours is individual.
I would associate, the only association I make between the orb and the entity, be it extraterrestrial or spirit, is because I have an evidence. There's been an evidential process associated with it. So, like I said earlier, with the orb that I see with one of the regular people that speak through you, I see the orb every single time, and he speaks. It's that black and white. So
somebody asked, can I have that name again, Sue? It's called The Psychic Structures of the Gallagher Circle. And it's a book, it's a free PDF, and they have pictures in it as well, showing different structures and testing methodologies to test mediums. In the past, mediums, and even today, are tested heavily by a scientific community to try to empirical evidence in regards to life after death. And so a lot of people are trying to get spirits to prove that they exist to the living.
Yeah, I suggest the only trouble with the testing that goes on these days for mediums is that it's not really testing the evidence for survival of loved ones. All it's doing is testing the evidential nature of phenomena. And the trouble with that is you don't know who or what is producing the phenomena.
Yeah. Phenomenon doesn't necessarily mean it's spirits or ET. Phenomenon can be telekinesis.
Could be many things.
You see, what's the point of putting a whole lot of sensors on a person to see if they're moving, or leaving the cabinet in the dark, whereas you could just cover the floor with flour, and that way, if anyone left the cabinet, their footprints would be all over the place.
Yeah,
I think some of the older methodologies for working out whether a medium was being fraudulent or not are not being used correctly these days, and because of that, people can sort of play up, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the traditional use of a seance trumpet, if you've ever heard of that. It's a cone, and some people have them made of thick cardboard and others of aluminium or whatever. That was to enhance the speaking from a voice box. The spirits would lift or form the ectoplasmic voice box at the end of the cone, the trumpet, and it would amplify the voice. Well, these days, if you hear about trumpets in physical mediumship circles or seances, you just hear about them whizzing round the room, right? Well, great, but who's whizzing them round the room? Is it the medium standing there, literally moving it? Or, has some other entity got hold of it? You just don't know. But if a spirit person actually used the trumpet for its original purpose and spoke through it and gave evidential information, to me, that's far more valuable than seeing the damn thing flying around the room.
So there's a name for somebody who's in a trance state but is holding something and moving around, and and it's called trance puppetry.
Yeah, and the other name for when they're well aware of what they're doing is just pure fraudulence.
Here's a question. Are there any specific precautions or guidelines that need to be followed when dealing with ectoplasm? What are the things that are in place for somebody?
Yeah.
And honestly, can somebody just sit down and go, okay, I'm an ectoplasmic medium, and just all of a sudden they've got ectoplasm? I mean,
never say never. Never rule out something crazy happening.
Would there be any training from the guides in regards to that?
I would have thought if a person who had never sat before for physical mediumship suddenly start genuinely producing heaps of ectoplasm by spirit people, had training where they hadn't realized it. So maybe they'd meditated their whole life and hadn't realized that there was a lot of background work going on, or something, would be my answer to that.
Yeah.
But generally, I'd suggest that it doesn't happen.
Right. So, what have you ever heard of any stories about mediums? Because I have, where one example is a medium was demonstrating they didn't clean the floor properly. When ectoplasm comes out, it can dematerialize things that are on the floor, like bits of dust or an old cigarette butt or whatever.
Yeah.
And supposedly, the medium became very unwell after the sitting, and when they were taken to hospital, and then they looked in, the person had cigarette butts inside their stomach from the rematerialized ectoplasm and the cigarette butts in the person's body.
So the precautions...
Is that true? We don't know. So there have to be a lot of precautions.
Yeah. So generally, physical mediums will sit in an absolute sterile environment. It will be a wooden floor that can be kept very clean, very easily. The room will be blacked out because your life force, your ectoplasm, can be very sensitive to light, or it might not be. You just don't know. So, if we're working to develop a person who has physical mediumistic abilities, we always suggest that they start off in a darkened room with low red light, just in case, because you don't know. And then once the spirit people can start telling you themselves what's going on, you don't need to do that anymore.
I would suggest that people don't develop a physical.
Yeah, but don't. It's hard work.
It's if you don't know what you're doing, it's just it can be a disaster. Remember that these things also affect people's your life, your physical health as well.
They reckon it lasts at least 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years of your life. So don't, I mean, if you're having problems mucking around with EVP, definitely don't try anything to do with table levitation and ectoplasm. And maybe we should put a disclaimer on this. Don't try any of this stuff at home. Okay.
No.
What about what do you think about Ouija boards?
Well, we use as a plant pot holder, don't we?
We use ours as a pot plant holder.
Yeah, on the recommendation of the spirit people.
Yeah, well, they say they're pretty useless. But,
No, they can work, but again, you don't know who's using it. So just like the electronic voice phenomena devices related to that, you've got no way to interpret the all the extra information that you're missing by using a device rather than yourself as the medium.
Yeah. So here's some questions, and it's based around the Zeta information. What role does consciousness play in the materialization process? Basically, it focuses on a location and draws the fine matter to the framework of materialization, say the Zetas. So that's interesting. Well, then here's the other one. How is the etheric body of an Apport created?
I have no idea.
It is copied. So if you have a ring and it has an etheric body, and if they want to create a copy of it, they take a copy of the etheric body and then they populate it with the same type of minerals, metal, and of course they then can produce two of the same items as well.
It's a comment. Is that a comment or a question? I can't see it. A candle and mirror.
Yeah, that's scrying.
Scrying.
We forgot about Trisha's question.
Okay.
Will AI make people think they have seen a spirit from embedded technology? Who knows what AI will do, really? I guess, interestingly, if you had an ocular headset on and you were plugged into an AI, I'm not sure if you've seen this online, but it can actually create for you a whole holographic environment that's very malleable. Yeah. So it wouldn't take much to do what do they call that embedding process that they're talking about, the neural embedding, and to actually create that environment using your ocular system as well.
Like all that stuff.
That would be called an augmented reality. All right.
John says, and no electronics.
Yeah,
keep the room as free as from electronic devices as possible. But they don't like the frequency, especially Bluetooth. Really interferes.
Candle mirror. People do that for scrying, but of course that produces a matrices effect, or what's called pareidolia, and you can then sort of create or see imagery. We haven't talked about transfiguration, have we?
Okay.
Ta-da! Transfig.
Yeah, I would suggest, in terms of all these different bits and bobs people use to develop their mediumship, all you need is yourself and your spirit guide. It's really that simple. You don't need anything else.
Yeah. What about transfig? What sort of transfig? We'll explain what transfig is.
Okay.
So transfig can be either an energetic mask over the front of the medium, which is an etheric mask, or it can be an ectoplasmic mask as well.
Yeah.
And some people call the energetic mask photoplasm.
Yeah, we won't get into.
And we're not going to get into all the different plasms at all, because
we can make a few up.
You can make some up.
Just add them to the list.
Yeah. Pizza plasm. All right. So.
I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah, pizza plasm. So what happens is once the spirit people come through a medium, they'll then impress themselves into the transfiguration process, and you may see half a face. And if you only see half a face or a portion of the face, that's called mask penetration. And of course, that means that either the light, the photons from the light, is disrupting the ectoplasmic process, or the photoplasmic process, or the energy is incorrect, or the consciousness of the sitters is interfering with the transfiguration, or the medium's mind as well.
Yeah.
The medium's mind is always a problem. It is not possible to say under any circumstances that a medium's mind on some level influences the work that they do, because it does. Spirits have often, and if you said that it does, if you read the article called "Problems of Communication" by Silver Birch, they accurately describe what takes place when a medium is in trance and when a guide is trying to speak as well.
Yeah. There was a question: are mirrors a gateway for spirit to come through?
No, not necessarily. I think that's just a a cultural belief system in regards to that. I know that people believe that. I've not seen a spirit come through mirrors. Spirits actually don't need to come through anything, because they can come through the fabric of the energy around a person.
Yeah.
We do know that spirits embed themselves in items. We were talking about this the other day.
That's very true.
Cultural items, bowls, cups, spoons, whatever items, crystals that were utilised by the medium or the shaman in the past. And once they do that, they take ownership of those. Yes, you may have seen it, but I haven't.
No.
In regards to the mirror. Yeah.
Trish, can a medium's mind create ectoplasm without the spirit?
Absolutely. So what happens is as the medium develops and the ectoplasm's being formed, the spirits are generally in control. Now, the consciousness of the medium is able to learn from the process for ectoplasmic creation. And quite often, mediums can produce phenomenon when there are no spirit in the room.
And what about the power of the collective mind of the sitters?
Yes, the sitters
don't underestimate that.
They may want to see a trumpet flying around the room.
Yep.
And so they take, because of the consciousness aspect, they take control of the trumpet off the spirit people. And next thing you know, they're controlling the trumpet flying around the room as well.
This is why phenomena really is not evidence of spirit activity.
No, it's evidence of kinetic,
it's activity of something, but true spiritual evidence comes from information about loved ones, events, things that no one else knows when they come out of the mouth of the medium via the spirit person. Everything else is just parlor tricks.
That's one way to say it.
Yeah, I really do believe that.
All right, we've been talking for over an hour, and I can't see any more questions, so I would suggest that we are going.
I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we did that as quickly as we could.
Yep. That's probably I know. We could have generated questions. If you have questions about anything, just leave them in the comments box, and we will see you again next week.
Okay. Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Bye.